All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of the FIT40 Podcast. We got a recurring guest. I think it's second time on. Phil Dominguez is in the house. For anybody who didn't catch the first one, highly recommend doing so. But he's a 17-year veteran in training and coaching in general, and he just knows his shit. He's one of those guys that is one of the best trainers I know, and I would trust him with my programming. And we're going to riff about a lot of really good topics today, training wise, nutrition wise, mindset wise. So can't wait to get started. Phil, welcome to the show.
Oh man, it's always great to be back with you, Brian. You're one of the best intro persons I know. You're just a great human being. I constantly listen to your podcast all the time. I know you're always telling me thank you for sharing, but I really do listen to your podcast very often. A couple of my friends have picked up on a couple of episodes that I shared with them that from you. So thanks always for sharing your stuff, man.
Appreciate that. And anybody listening right now, just know you can share too. Share the wealth.
Knowledge is power, so share it.
Yes, yes. So you ready to talk a little bit about people staying on track so they don't hit New Year's resolution time like 10, 20 pounds up?
Or when they call you after New Year's resolution has started already and we want to get back on it. Yes, I'm ready to talk about that.
Yes, yes,
It's a
because we're
very
because we're
tough
two
topic.
trainers. We know the deal. We know that those calls are going to be coming in January, February. Like, ugh, I had a rough couple months. So let's make sure that doesn't happen to the Fit40 podcast crew.
Definitely. How do you jump into it right away? Do you just give them, hey, this is what you got to follow, or do you jump in as a coach? We're coaches, man. We got to talk to people and making sure that they understand where they're one, what their goals are. That's always the number one thing. Get back to your goals. Keep, as Dan John says, keep the
The
goal, the goal, the
goal is
goal.
to keep the goal the goal.
Absolutely. So, so what are their goals in mind? And we're always going to take a look at that. Number one, are we losing weight? Are we gaining weight? Are we maintaining strength, mobility? What are we working on? And then after that, I like to look at their schedule. How busy do you really get? Are you on vacation during, holiday time? Are you working more during holiday time? Some people tend to work a little more. Are you, taking a whole month off of not going to work, but you're working from home? So, there's stuff going on there. So there's a bunch of different things, and that fluctuates with people's times, their ability to work out, how they're eating. Sometimes a little stress eating comes in because it's the holiday. So we look at all those things and we try to make sure we stay on course with the plan. What's the plan? Are you working out 1 day a week? Are you working out 2 or 3? As a coach, it's a little hard to find out like what they're thinking if you're not checking in with your clients periodically. So that's another thing. You try to check in with your clients periodically during this time. Uh,
Yeah. Well,
Parties
and
are
I think
happening
from
everywhere.
Yeah, and I think from everybody listening, because they're usually on the other side of things, being the clients, especially if you guys have a coach or a personal trainer, reach out to them because it's so easy to be like, I don't want to bug them. I don't want to annoy them. But at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. And it's times like this that are the most like high risk of falling off.
Absolutely. Like, okay, so during this time, what is the number one thing that most people tend to do when they fall off? It's either they don't work out or they overeat. Okay, so why are we overeating? What's the reason why we're overeating? Most of the time, cultural foods are involved with that. Our surroundings, our
100%.
environment. I'm part Mexican over here, so our pan dulce comes out, our tamales come out, our what
Hey,
else?
I'm
Everything.
just saying, when it comes to Mexican food, that is some of the easiest to make like healthy choices. At least when it comes to Chipotle, like when it comes to like any neighborhood Mexican style restaurant, like rice, beans, and chicken. Come on,
They
man.
they give
Like
you
and
really,
pico, like
yeah, the
yeah,
small portions most of the time, then they're really usually healthy. But
yeah.
I like to eat that stuff. So pile it on more for me. But again, that's overeating, and I'm not hitting my macros and my points, whatever what scales we're looking at.
Yeah.
So that's the part that we got to look at. What cultural foods or what environment is setting us up for either the failure or what we want to look at the um, not failing at it. So either I'm asking them for either lists of what they're eating or usually the main foods that are coming into their home at this time. What are those main things? Is it going to be, I don't know, the chile verde with the omelets, or I don't know? Is it going to be these things? Okay, cool. If it's those things, let's get our portion of it that we want to eat. Let's make sure that we can get the most protein that we can out of it, and then follow the recipe from there. Yeah, I'm not saying to stay away from it. but let's just moderate it a little bit and be mindful about that. That yes, it's this time of year, but I still have this goal and I could have these things together to get me to that goal.
And I think it's also important too to understand what is actually going to be fulfilling for you. Like, are you actually going to get a lot out of stuffing your face of the stuff that you normally don't eat? Or are you going to get just as much satisfaction and even more enjoyment out of it by getting enough of a taste of it to be like, okay, I scratched the itch, but I don't feel like a bloated mess. I don't feel like I'm just stuffed beyond belief. Where it's like you can have that thing that you've been looking forward to as like almost like a part of the dish where it's like a quarter of the dish and then the rest is the stuff that's going to like be lean protein, veggies and all that stuff.
Just portion it out like that. I mean, I'm sure you with your FIT40 group, you're constantly talking about those portions, right?
Oh yeah.
For me, when I was younger, I was always under eating on my portion. So now that I'm talking about putting more of it, putting that on my plate for me is like, oh wow, those are big differences. Understanding those portions. I mean, for who knows, for most of us, we think that this portion of vegetables is a lot, and for the most part, it probably is way less than what we really want. And for instance, I don't know, what mashed potatoes or something like that, which is one of our carbs that's very a little bit higher in calorie content. Maybe we don't need as much mashed potatoes. And then I tend to try to remind people at this time of year too, how did you feel last year when you consumed all this stuff? And the year
Yep.
prior to that, and the year prior to that.
Well, that's the mindful component that I think a lot of people don't actually get the coaching on, where it's like be mindful. It's like, what does that mean? Well, that's one of the things where it's like, okay, let's compare last time. Like, what did that feel and look like?
And I'm one of those guys. I always feel like shit because I overeat during this time of year. And it's
Yep.
not like every day that I'm overeating. It's when those foods are around, at a party. I'm going to
Yeah.
fill my plate up because I rarely eat this. But then I got to wear the big sweats because I'm really super bloated. I'm happy I wear the big sweats today. But I just don't like that feeling of I've reached my limit of eating food here and now I can barely talk because I'm about to throw up type of
Yeah.
thing. Like I just
And I
that's
think
being
that
mindful.
yeah, and I think when it comes to that stuff, it's like you need to separate the ritual from like what you actually want. Because a lot of times we get into these familiar situations with family, with friends, and we're like, this is how I did it last year, year before, year before, year before. And you're just like, this is my normal rhythm, but this rhythm isn't serving me. So it needs a little intention to be like, you know what? I'm going to do things a little bit differently this time.
Hey, keeping on track with doing things differently is going to be the key. So when you write down your list, now you have ways to keep track of that progress, right? Making sure you're coming back to step one, step two, step three, crossing those things off. All right, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that. That's going to help you keep on track. And that's where most people at this time of year, they just throw it out the window and they're going to start over again. But we're trying to stay on top of those little itty bitty things that you've built throughout the whole year. Continue doing those things.
Yeah, yeah, on that topic, I want to get back to what you said in the beginning because I think it would be a good way to kind of format this a little bit so we could give people like step by step. And that is the two things that you brought up in the beginning were goals and expectations. So let's start off with like types of goals around this time of year that serve people best because I think we can both agree fat loss around this time of the year usually doesn't go too well.
Absolutely.
So somebody like shifting to a maintenance phase or a performance phase would probably be more ideal at times like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's cut back a little bit on being so tedious on maintaining that fat loss. It's okay to go over right now. It's okay. You're gonna need a little extra to keep you warm throughout the winter. It's fine. You know, but goals. The what's the first thing that we're gonna look at? Are we gonna be maintaining food, or are we gonna be maintaining workouts? Or are we gonna be maintaining lifestyle? I want to look at those type of three things first. Is it gonna be is it nutrition? Is it gonna be you coming to see me, our scheduled workouts? Or are we going to get away from that and just, all right, let's just continue walking a little more and managing our stress during this time? So that's the first thing. After that, us take a look at your week to see what fits in that frame right there. Do you have time to squeeze in a workout, one or two? Do you have time to go for this other walk? Do you have time to meal prep to help you with what's going to maintain the course? After that, I think the main process after that is the stress level management. Figure out those two first, and then check out your stress level. Once you figure out those things, it will mold a small little plan for you to help you maintain your course. I hope that helped out a little bit.
Yeah, definitely,
Okay.
definitely. Because when it comes to like maintenance and performance in general, when it comes to like training, for example, what would that look like for if somebody's like, okay, I want to pump the brakes on the fat loss and just kind of embrace the fact that I'm going to have a little bit more fuel. I'm not going to be moving around as much naturally. Like if somebody wanted to build more muscle compared to where they're at right now, and like compared to a fat loss phase, what would you say to somebody with that goal?
I would still keep their workouts honestly pretty much the same, just not as intense. Just not as intense. Maybe I again, depending on the person, I would probably take away. I do when I program for people, I do like three sets of circuits with two exercises each, maybe three exercises depending on where they're at. Maybe I take away one of those circuits and we focus a little more on load, so that they're just moving just a little tad more. They're not pushing extra weight where they're jumping up 5, 10 pounds or anything like that. They're just doing more of the same load. It's not as intense, but it's still a workout. We could do that. We can change your workout to maybe, all right, you're only getting a half hour workout a day, 45 minutes in. Let's do some type of kettlebell circuit. Let's change it in that variation of that a little bit, where you're able just to maintain the same amount of adaptation or stress to your muscles where you're still growing a little bit, just to maintain that. That's all.
Yeah. Because
It,
this is super important for people to understand when it's like a stressful time of the year. Like if you've got party after party and your kid has a million things going on, they've got sport winter tournaments and all this shit.
those are
Sometimes
all stressors.
yeah,
Those
these
are
are
all
maintenance
stressors.
times where it's like, what's the like minimal effective dose?
Yes, yes. That's yeah, exactly what I said. Just the minimum adaptation that we can just get to, just to get you, get your feet a little wet in it, where you're not losing everything, but you're still feeling like, hey, I'm still maintaining the course here. I'm still following the goal to get me to where I want to be at.
Yeah. And then let's say that they don't have all those crazy stressors going on. Like, let's say that this is for some reason the stars align and it's like, okay, we can push a little pedal to the metal right now. And they want to go into like a performance zone where it's like, all right, this extra energy, I want to use it. Like, what would that look like as far as training's concerned?
On that, I ramp up their sessions just a little bit. Now I take their intensity and I'll push that a little more, since they have a little fuel to give a little more. So maybe we might increase their weight by 5, 10 pounds. We might, hey, if you have that extra energy and you're feeling good, let's test to see where we're at right now at the end of the year. So we have just the base of where we're at to continue going forward. So we're not losing anything. I'm just gonna say bench, for instance, just because everyone knows bench. Let's give a 5, 10 rep max or a 1 rep max, whatever it is, in right now at November. Now we can use that for the rest of November, December, going into January, and we've not lost anything. We're now gaining going in more, right? That was the
Yeah.
goal. It's a gain going
Well,
into
I
the new year.
like that
So
setting like a baseline where it's like, okay, this is where we're at. And then you can compare and see, okay, how do I perform compared to a month ago, 2 months ago?
absolutely. That's why we track data, man. It helps you compare to where you're at, whether you're feeling good, whether you're feeling bad, good energy, bad energy. For ladies, sometimes different times of the month help you feel better. You go through your different 4 stages of your menstrual cycle. So those stages, they play within your energy levels while you're working out. Your hormones are everywhere. So sometimes you're high energy, sometimes you're not. Again, speaking for females here, I'm not a female, but speaking for them, that's how
Uh,
usually
I
how
gotta
it works, right?
I gotta hold myself back from making jokes. It's 2024. Anyway, um,
I'm all about the jokes, man. Jokes are fun.
I know, I know. I want everybody to feel included here. So anyway, yeah, no, that's awesome because I think that that's a really good thing to always factor in, which is certain things that are going on in people's bodies when it comes to their goals and things and like ramping it up. And I think if you're not going to take anything else away from this podcast episode, everybody get in the habit of just recording your weights because it makes such a world of difference if you can do more over time. But if you don't record, you never really know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do a very simple when you're recording those weights. I do just a very simple one. Say we start at 25 pounds. We're gonna work at 25 pounds, then 25 pounds. And then the next time you come, hey, guess what? We're gonna start at 25 pounds again. We're gonna go 25 pounds, but guess what? We're gonna go 30 pounds now. So when you don't see those add up, you don't know where your progress is at. So now you take that and multiply that by a couple of weeks. You're no longer working with those 25 pounds. You're working at the 35s and the 40s now. So
Yep.
that progress one helps you as an individual. It sparks more vigor in you to, oh, I'm actually performing better. Like I could see this happening. Recording it, videoing it, picturing it, whatever it is, to just recording those results so you can see them, that you're
Mhm.
progressing somewhere. It helps drastically.
Absolutely. And it holds you accountable a little bit because on those days you don't feel great because I know like back to the menstrual cycle thing, if you still have your cycle, like they've done studies on women to see does their performance actually get affected by that? And they found that even if they're feeling shitty, their overall strength actually is not affected. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's more of the mental aspect of I feel like shit, so you want to dial it down. But when they're actually like just lift as much as you can, the strength levels are identical compared to whatever phase it is. So in times like that, like when you're stressed out, when you're low energy, when you feel like you're just like down, having those numbers to be like, let's see if I can get close to this. And then you do it and you're like, all right, I'm capable of more. Then you end up using more weight than you otherwise would have, and you're going to get to your goals a lot faster.
100%, absolutely. And I speak from exactly that. That's happened with my clients just within the last month and a half. It's just showing them the data helps out. It just really, really does.
Yeah. And I think that's really the big thing that I think is the separator between people getting coached and people keeping themselves accountable. Like the being able to face the data, being able to actually be honest and take a look at the numbers and be like, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm at, and this is either the reason I am achieving or not achieving my goals.
And in sports, we always have that balls don't lie, or things like that. Data doesn't lie when you're tracking it correctly. Like these are just numbers. It doesn't have a
Yeah.
feeling like, oh, I feel like picking on you today. No, it's these are just facts, numbers of what you're doing. It says, here you go. This is what you're doing.
Yeah. And that objectiveness allows you to take a look at it and it's clear as day most times where it's like, all right, well, this is what I need to change, or this is the reason I'm doing so well. It's like, that makes sense. But if you're
It really
floating in this
does.
gray space of like, I feel like I'm doing everything right, but you have nothing to prove that you are, it's like, how do you know?
How do you know what are you basing these claims off of? Like, are you just picking numbers and say I feel no? There's merit to those numbers that you have.
Yep, absolutely. And I think this is a good way to transition into the next thing that wanted to bring up, which was the expectation aspect of this. Because a lot of times people expect to keep losing weight at the rate that they're losing. They keep expecting to like increase their performance at the same rate, regardless of the season that the year is at. And different seasons come with different challenges. Like we said, stress adds to it. So, what would be a conversation that you would have around this time if somebody's like, I want to keep gunning it, pedal to the metal, but I got all these parties coming up, but I've got my kids thing going on. What would that kind of sound like?
Well, what would that sound? I would question, not necessarily question their motive or whatever. I would just ask them questions based on that environment, based on that surrounding. Like, what's the most important thing that you need to take care of right now? Is it going to your kids thing? Because obviously kids are important. If you leave your kids out of something, they're gonna feel that. I'm not saying that they're gonna grow up with psychological problems, but you never know. Like that one
Yeah.
event that you might miss might lead to something where they hate you for the rest of your life. So you got to think about those things a little bit. I'm not
Putting the
saying,
pressure on there, Phil.
yeah, I've seen it happen. That's what I'll say. I've just seen it not necessarily to that extent, but I've seen where
Yeah.
a little resentment happens, and you don't want that. So
Hey, I still remember when my mom missed my home run like back in the day. I still give her shit for it.
exactly, you have
But
to.
she was there. She was there. She was just in the bathroom.
Oh, oh well,
I
mom. Okay,
I
well,
still give her shit to this day.
at that case, I'm gonna make a joke and be like, "Mom, go back to the restroom every time I'm at bat because I need to hit a home run every single time."
That's
So
what I told her. I'm like, just keep going to the bathroom. Like I'm doing incredible. Feed into it.
I don't have the distraction of you, Mom. It's okay.
Yeah. No, if I can keep smacking balls into the parking lot, stay in the bathroom the entire time I'm at bat.
I'm breaking records today, Mom. It's okay. You don't have to sleep.
Yeah. That was my
Uh,
baseball prime since we were talking about World Series. That was my prime, like sixth, seventh grade, nailing it.
oh, man, you primed out early there, I would say, huh?
Very early, very early. Yep.
But going back to really quick though, that's something that I would tell. I was just, what's the most important thing to you right now that you need to take care of at this moment? Is it that event that you need to go see your kid's recital? Is it that? Is it maintaining your weight loss? Is it gaining your strength? Like, what's the most important thing to you right now? And then again, go back to step one, list it. If it's that
Yep.
important, list it, and then figure out your time from there. Like, what's the most important thing, and go from there. Like, yes, we have holiday parties every year, and I'm sure someone won't get mad at you, or I'm sure someone will get mad at you if you miss their holiday party. But there's always next year, and you can be invited to that again if you're, that cool. You're not
Yeah.
gonna lose a
Or
friendship over one
yeah.
party.
Or you can have that conversation that I think a lot of people are not very good at having, which is the art of, like, I know in our space, Molly Galbraith is like an absolute pro at this, but like saying no in a kind way that doesn't get you uninvited in the future. Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, you just tell them straight up, like, listen, I really, really want to go to this, but I just can't. And then that way it's like you can word it however you need to, but that way they're like, okay, so it's not like they're blowing me off and they hate me. It's just, oh, they just can't make it.
It's okay to say, like you just said, it's okay to say no, that you have prior engagements, that other things are happening. It's when people get into the space of, I don't want to let everybody down, that I'm not going to their party. It's like, hey, everybody's busy. Other people are going to be at their party. They're probably not going to miss you as much because there's stuff going on at their party. So, think of it that way. What's the most important thing to you at right now? And then take care of that first, and then go second, third, fourth.
Yep, exactly, exactly. And the other thing too is just giving yourself permission to say it's okay. Like these are my priorities and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Boundary. I've just finished a book about boundaries the other day, and that's something that I've been terrible at, is setting boundaries with people on when to really contact me for questions and stuff. Because I'm always so open about contacting me about questions. Just send me a message anytime. It doesn't matter. But sometimes people take a little advantage of that, and with certain people, you need to set those boundaries about, like, hey, I understand that we're friends, but this is a boundary that I need to have, and maybe you shouldn't. Not you. You just got to word it correctly, but we probably I can't respond to you at this from these hours, or certain things like of that nature.
Yeah. Well,
Boundaries are huge.
yeah, that's why I love the way that like mine has like adapted over the years where it's like, listen, you have 24/7 access to me. Every single client does. And my goal is to get back in minutes, but it's a 24-hour rule. So it's like if shit hits the fan, if I'm crazy busy, it'll never go longer than a day. But if you text me at like 9, 10 at night, it's getting answered the next morning.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the dude that's actually looking at my phone at 5 o'clock the next morning, be like, okay, I got to respond to you, and you, because you know. So that definitely helps out, setting those boundaries. And we keyed on it earlier about having communication, man. Crucial conversations are so important to have, and that's kind of like this whole talk and this whole episode on this podcast is having those crucial conversations. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I don't want to eat that our cultural food today, or as much. You don't have to keep shoving it in my face. No, I don't want them. I know I've had enough. No, thank you. It's okay to say those things, and having those crucial conversations really does help, because you set those boundaries with people. They know where you're coming from. They understand your goals. And if they understand your goals, they're not going to impede on your goals' progress, and they're going to probably help out a little bit. But if you
Yeah.
don't have crucial conversations with them, they're not going to understand where you're coming from.
And that crucial conversation, if we're being totally honest, is usually with grandma or one of those aunts that love to force food down your throat.
100%. I love my Mima so much, but my Mima used to pile it on when I was younger, when I didn't eat as much, and I hated it. Well, now not as much anymore, but they're usually the ones, because they want to keep the culture alive. Well, the culture is alive because you're there together. That's the culture.
Yeah.
Like, whatever events that goes on there, fine, but that's cultures coming together as that community, as a family. Uh, do you have to have the cultural foods? Sure, to make it a little special. Yeah, but do you have to eat it? You don't have to.
Yeah. You can have all these foods as much as you want. It just comes down to what exactly do you want most? Do you want to like have your cake and eat it too? If that's the case, you just can't have a ton of it. Or
Yeah.
do you want to stay mostly on track? Then only have a little bit or none at all. Or do you want to just have a day where you're like, hey, I don't really care. I kind of want to enjoy that and I want to stuff myself. If it's one day, who cares? One day will
Who
never mess
cares?
you up.
And we say it as professionals all the time. As long as it's one day, that next day, jump right back on because it'll feel as natural as possible to you. It's when you don't jump back on the next day, it's when you feel a little sluggish, and then it comes the next day when you don't jump back on, and then another day,
Yeah.
and then you're
It's
in that cycle.
it's never that one day, it's that week or months of fuck it's.
And you said that earlier today on your podcast that you released earlier this morning, and I giggle when you said the fuck it's like that exactly what fuck it. I don't have to go today. Fuck it. I don't have to eat
Well,
this today.
I
Fuck
gotta
it. You
give the
know.
credit. I gotta give the credit to The Rock on that one. I heard it and I'm like, I am 100% keeping that.
I don't remember when he said that, but that's hilarious. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is
because
great.
he's got some of the most epic cheat days of all time. And I think he was like talking about, he's like, listen, I've had a couple too many of these lately, and I'm just kind of having a case of the fuckets. And I'm like, yep, that's pretty much it.
That's pretty good. I like when Shane Gillis makes fun of The Rock. He's like, "Who's this guy with his fucking cheat days?" Like, "Oh, I'm having the." It's pretty funny. Anyway,
I mean, to eat that, I mean, I used to dream of that stuff when I would compete, like in bodybuilding, like when you're in the dog days and you can't have the food, and the only satisfaction is you can think about the food.
ooh,
Watching the Rock's cheat days were like porn. I was like, oh, that looks so
definitely food
good.
porn.
All
Dude,
that
he would do like
sushi,
these
all those
cookies and
pancakes.
like pancakes and but he would like dribble like honey and peanut butter on it. And we're not just talking like a little amount. We're talking
Oh,
like the
that.
whole like thing. And then he would
And
just cut. Oh my God.
one time I
God.
saw he infused his tequila in like whipped cream, and I'm like, that probably tastes so damn good.
Wow. I didn't know you did that. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. So if anybody's thinking for the holidays something interesting they want to try out, try that or the tequila infused whipped cream. See how that goes over at the parties. Just don't let the kids get it.
No, definitely. That was me when I was 6 years old, drinking a little bit of
Unless you unless you're trying to
what
get
is
them to bed.
yeah, they'll definitely put them to sleep. What did I have? I had it was a eggnog and vodka. Someone put vodka in the eggnog when I was young, and I got really sick because I was like, "Oh, this is good," but
uh
I kept drinking it.
Well, that's like when you're younger and like I know my dad would give me like a sip of beer and he's like, taste it, see how it is. And as a kid, you're all hyped up. You're like, oh, this is so cool. And you taste it, you're like, I am never drinking a beer
That
ever.
is disgusting.
I
But yet,
swear,
the one
like
thing that we love the most now is beer.
I think that's the reason I didn't drink like as early as a lot of my friends did, because I'm like, this thing tastes like shit. I don't want this.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that very. I was one of those guys too. Just beer in itself was disgusting as you're younger, but you tend to like really develop your palate when you're like your mid 20s, going into your 30s with beer,
Yeah.
and then you just
Well,
love beer
because you can
later on.
afford good beer, and you're like, okay, so Natty Light, not quite the pinnacle of beer out there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll up my taste a little bit.
Oh, dude, when you get out here to LA, dude, I'm taking you to Uncle Henry's, dude. It's my spot down the street. 99
Hey,
beers on tap,
does
delicious
it have
beers. Oh,
ciders? Because I
has
can't do
had
beers.
it has ciders, it has sours, stouts, porters, everything you can think of this place has. It's
Hey,
pretty good.
I will
But
take you up on that because I'm
you
turning into a cider connoisseur since I
oh,
can't do it because of the gluten.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah, no. They always have some really good ciders too from different areas. So definitely.
Hell yeah. Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we get a
The
little sandwich with that. Oof, oof.
Yep. I say all the time, this podcast is not going to have ads or anything or sponsors unless it's food or in this case, cider. Like
I like that.
that'll be the only exception I make. If somebody pops in and says, listen, I got a cider company that really isn't that crazy on the calories. What do you think? Hmm.
I'm gonna have to get you some kombucha. Send you one of my kids is kombucha. I have one of my guys out here
Ooh.
makes kombucha, and he gives it to me. I'm gonna send you some.
Hell yeah. I'm down to try it.
Yeah,
I haven't been on the kombucha train. I definitely want to give that a go. That sounds like a Cali thing, a California thing.
I'm more than sure that's what it is because I've never heard of it anywhere else other than here.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
I rarely drink
actually,
it, but it's supposed to be good for
I
you.
take that back. I actually just had an old coworker tag me in something from like 7 years ago, and she used to down that stuff like it was nobody's business. That and bone broth.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep. Yep. So now that, but other than her, I can't think of a single person.
Yeah, yeah, it's not a big thing anywhere else other than here, and people go crazy for it when it's out over here.
Yeah.
Why? I have no idea. It's supposed to be healthy for you, quote quote, but I mean, what's supposed to, what's not supposed to, who knows?
Yeah. Hey, it nowadays, I mean, we can pretty much get away with calling anything healthy or anything toxic because if everything's toxic, is nothing it really is.
Brian, the only thing that's toxic around here is my personality, sir.
Amen. No, but anyway, back on topic, back on
Oh, sorry
topic,
about that. Yeah,
away from the booze, or
yeah.
actually, let's stick with booze because I think that that's one of the things that does get people thrown off a lot when it comes to this end of year stuff. And what are some of your favorite strategies for either minimizing or not feeling like you need alcohol?
Let's see. That's a really good
Yeah.
question.
Because I
Um,
was talking to a client the other day and she's like, this whole COVID booze thing kind of just carried over. Like I feel like we're having booze at random times for no reason. And I'm like, you're kind of right with that.
I I tend to just go right back to the list. What's the goal? Uh, I don't over drink as much as I used to anymore. Like it's just something I just don't do anymore. So it's a little easier for me to kind of just maintain how much I'm drinking through this time because I just really don't right now during Christmas time. Or
Yeah.
I call this Christmas time. It's not Christmas time yet, but November, December to Christmas time. I usually don't. I'm just trying to stay warm, so I kind of just drink a little bit more warmer stuff to keep me warm. But it's rarely alcohol during this time. Uh, Go back to your goals. That's what that would be my advice. Is just, do you really need to be drinking excessively right now to help you continue going forward with how we're going to lead into January, where you're not calling me in the week two saying, "Hey, I messed up." No, let's maintain the course and just minimize what you're drinking or what you're
Yeah.
having or what you're thinking about during that time.
Yeah. And I think it also comes down to like, what exactly are we drinking for? Because if we're like, it really depends on a number of things. I was just having a conversation with a client about this where she's reduced her intake significantly. And it's like, so what exactly are you missing? Like, is it the social aspect? Like, do you feel like you can't hang out with your friends unless you're all grabbing a drink? And if so, could be worth finding a different venue. Or
Yeah.
is it like the fact that you like having something in your hand? Like you can order a mocktail and then that way you kind of have the same feel, or you could just get a chaser. It's kind of like Always Sunny where they're like, people drink straight chaser. Have you seen that one where they're on the
Yes.
cruise ship and it's like a
Yes.
dry cruise?
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a great episode. That whole entire series is amazing. Well, again, when you get out to LA, I'll show you that building where that's at too, where they filmed that at.
Yes, awesome. And then last but not least, like when it comes to like I know there's a million reasons for drinking a little bit, but I mean the other thing too is just to wind down at the end of the day because this is the time of year where a lot of businesses get really crazy busy. Like I know my dad was a UPS driver. He just retired
Oh,
after like
whoa.
40 something years, and
This
this
is,
was crazy time. Like
yeah,
from
they're working
now
like
all the way
16
through
hours
January.
right now. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. That's crazy schedule
So
for them.
if that's the case and it's like you just need to bring yourself down, then incorporating things like meditative practices, as cheesy as that sounds, it helps. Like even something as simple as a 5 minute reset where you just like take 5 minutes in your car or at home, put yourself in a room, like shut the door so nobody can come in, and you just throw some yoga tunes on or just breathe and
It's funny
relax for
that
five
you say
seconds.
that. It's funny how cheesy stuff sounds, but how amazingly uncheesy it is when you do it. Those
Well,
things that you're
it's
talking
so
about,
easy
cheesy.
to discount it, but then like when you do a full like 5 minutes, and that's literally like the lowest I've ever gone, and even 5 minutes laying on your back and just focusing on your breathing and like clearing your mind, your whole body changes. Like
It really
you
does.
feel like you start talking slower, you feel like you're a bit in like a daze, and you're like, what?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Those little things really do help out. Again, listen to your podcast daily stuff that you talked about. Talked about. You mentioned earlier a little bit of yoga, a little bit of quiet time. You've mentioned journaling helps out, and that does too. Because what do you do when you journal? You're sitting down and you're forced to think about something to write or to get your thoughts out, and that in itself takes time. It calms you down a little bit. So it really, those things, small little techniques, as cheesy as they sound, they really do help out. Most people, people that are that we consider like high end people. I'm gonna just name like LeBron James, for instance. He probably does some of these things. He probably has a little bit of downtime, a little bit of yoga time, a little bit of him time, because he needs that. Like a lot of these athletes and high end people, politicians, they have these times that we just don't know about because they're so private on them. But people have these things that are built into them, and tap into them a little more. As cheesy as they sound, they really do help.
Yeah. And I think the time thing becomes like the main barrier, but it's like it doesn't require an hour-long yoga class. It doesn't
No.
require you to like block out your entire afternoon. It's as simple as sitting in your car for 5 minutes, closing your eyes, and just thinking about your breathing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we've talked. I was on the last time I was on your podcast. We talked about the breathing, how big I am on breathing. Just sitting down and breathing, just different positions, hands up, different whatever it is. Just breathing and just being in tune with your breath helps out drastically. You want your stress levels to come down a little bit? Do a little bit of that. Go in a room by yourself and just
Absolutely.
sit down and breathe a little bit. Put a little timer on, and you'll see the difference.
Yeah, because sometimes it just takes experiencing it because your body does like that feeling of being calmer. So you'll find that like you can bring yourself down faster. When you're like always up here, you're always on edge, you're always like an inch away from freaking out. But it becomes so hard to imagine anything else. But then you experience what down here feels like, and you're like, I prefer that.
So much more. Like not only that, but you go back to that right now when you're so here all the time, or you're down here for some people. Not only is that you though, but what does that do to the people around you, to the environment? We're going back to being mindful here. Like think about what it does to them when you're always on the edge and you're always walking around with a little bit of like snarkiness. That puts people on the edge, and that puts people how they react towards you on the edge, and vice versa. And that crucial conversations goes back to miscommunication on those types of things. So not only is it a stressful time for a lot of people right now, think about those things to so that they're not stressful for them, to bring down that stress during this time of Christmas time, because everybody's going to be stressed right now. It doesn't matter who it is. Everybody's going to be stressed. So if you could take a little mindfulness, a little crucial conversations, those things are going to go a long way. One, for your sanity, but for your holiday season, it's going to really help out.
Exactly. And to bring this full circle, one of
Ooh,
the
I like
best
full
things
circle.
you can do for stress relief during times like this is exercise.
100%. 100%. The gym is here for all of us to release those stress, to see the stress go away. It's the best thing for you, man. It's the fountain of youth on all aspects.
Yeah, because I think that's another avenue people can take too when it comes to like how we were talking about shifting your goals and everything. Instead of thinking, okay, this is for fat loss, this is for performance, you can literally take these next 2 months and be like, you know what? I'm just going to use exercise as a way to keep my head on straight, as a way to wipe the slate clean and black my thoughts out for like 30 to 60 minutes, give me some space during the day for myself, and then I want to see how I feel and how I perform based on that in my job or in like at home, and how much better of a parent I feel like based on showing up in a good space rather than stress 24/7.
Take away the stress, man. Work out. Go for a walk, work out, breathe, meditate. All these things that we said, man. We're not talking about doing them days on for the entire day. These things can happen in little spurts of time, and it'll
Yeah.
help you over little spurts of time.
Well, I think where people get lost in it is these like stupid social media influencers that come up with these morning routines that literally take 3, 4, 5 hours to the point where you would accomplish nothing.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
But it's like the people that do actually perform well, that are high earners, that are living the lives that they want to live, they do it in time friendly ways.
it's always about time. It's the number one thing that I hear people that don't have time for, or that they're making time for, is to be with their family. So if you can follow some type of the same type of format that you follow to be with your family for everything else, you'll have a good life, man. It's just balancing out all these little itty bitty things together. Make your
Yep.
list, follow your list, and check them off.
Yep. And refer back because it's so easy to make these lists and have all the best intentions, but then life happens, old habits resurface, and then you're just like, when you go back and look, you're like, well, I'm a little bit off on that. Like, I should probably change this, this, and this, and then keep doing that over and over again until it becomes second nature. Because one planning session doesn't change anything.
Yeah, no, no. But that session multiplied over numerous times will,
Yep.
repetition is the mother of skill. So keep practicing that.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all about those like 10,000 reps, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Jeez.
Yep. Yep. Now, I got to ask before we wrap up, when it comes, the one thing I did want to ask is because right now, for anybody who doesn't know, Phil is coaching one really damn good team, and
Thank you.
success leaves clues. So, if we were to take any lessons from the football team, the high school football team that you are coaching right now, what are some things that they changed over the past year or two, or what are some things this season that are pretty clear indicators that, okay, it's no surprise that they're this good this year?
Uh, so really, I wasn't a part of the coaching staff last year. This is my first year back coaching after a while, so I was able to
Yeah.
watch the team and I can compare a little bit. So that's a really good
So
question.
clearly the missing piece was you. So if somebody's in Phil's area and they want success, clearly he is the guy.
You build your rapport with your kids, man. That's one of the things that I'll
Yeah.
say for sure, man. My guys, I coach the wide receivers. Zone six is what they call themselves. It's a little moniker that everyone knows them at. It's pretty cool. They work their butts off, but I'll say the biggest thing that's different from last year to this year, there's two things. One, they're a little more aggressive. They weren't as aggressive as they were last year. A little toughness mentality type of thing. Um, but the other thing is, and you alluded to it when you first said it, is their team. Last year they only had one or two guys. They had the quarterback and their wide receiver. That was their team last year. This year, we have 1,000 yard rusher, but we don't have 1,000 yard passer. We don't have 1,000 yard catcher. We don't have one guy that's really making all the tackles on defense. We don't have one guy that's making all the sacks on defense. So like it's literally everybody just doing their small piece to make the engine run. That's why we're so good. We've had one game where we threw the ball a whole bunch and we didn't run a lot, and then we've had a bunch of games where we've ran the ball a bunch and we didn't throw at all. So it's it's everybody doing everything from the coaching staff to the kids that are really buying into how good we can be. Being a part of football, I've always talked about a perfect storm, and right now this group is that perfect storm where they have the senior leadership that they need, along with the pieces of the underclassmen to help the senior leadership. That is something that you need to have to make a successful run in the postseason. The Dodgers just had that with the World Series, but you need to have those pieces to help you go far. You can't just always rely on your superstars because at some point they're going to falter. They're going to need a little help. If you have those other people within your program to step in for those roles, that's when it really projects and you go far. The last few years they've lost in the first round, so hopefully the goal is to get out of the first round and carry on forward. So, um, you know, I think that's the biggest thing, that this year they're a team and they're a little bit more aggressive. They're a little bit more mentally tough.
Yep. And the reason I ask that is because I know when people are listening right now and they hear me ask that, they're like, what the heck does a high school football team have to do with my results? But it's because these core concepts are so present in all successful aspects of life. The big thing that you just talked about that I was picking up on was that the identity shifted. So instead of just a bunch of singular people, now you're a team. That group of the wideouts are now zone six. Like there's this identity of like we carry ourselves a certain way, we accomplish certain things, we do what we need to do. And anybody listening right now, that's one of the biggest things that is essential to making the changes that you want to make and staying on track during this time of the year is embracing your identity. Like I know in my program we call it our fit identity. Like what would fit you do right now? And that
Yeah.
makes your decision making so much easier. And it creates this new norm that gets you closer to your goals. Just like these kids are like succeeding on the field week after week after week. It's a reflection of this new identity.
Yeah, absolutely. Just being from unaggressive to aggressive, that's their new identity. Is last year we couldn't block on the outside. Now we are really solidified on the outside, and that makes our run game go. That makes our pass game go. So we could throw anything at them, and that's just because, like you said, they have a new identity, and that's something I've harped on all year from being their coach to this now. It's something we built upon, and we're luckily tonight, man. It's our championship game of the league, so it should be a fun one. And it's against my alma mater for the first time, so that's going to be another
Oh
fun one too.
boy.
Oh man, heading into enemy territory at home for the first time. It's pretty cool. really excited. I've been getting a bunch of messages about it, and I look forward to it.
Nice, nice. And then I had two more on that because the
Absolutely.
other one, the second one being community. Because obviously when you're on a big football team and there's 20, 30, 40, 50 guys, it's like, okay, everybody's this like joined community and you all have the same goal. And it can be really daunting to not have a community, to not have a tribe when you're on the journey. Because doing something like trying to improve your body composition or change your habits and things like that is hard enough on its own, but try doing it alone with no support. That's really tough.
Super, super. So having everybody wants to be a part of something, no matter what. It doesn't matter. A book club, running club, chess club,
Orange
workout club,
Theory.
whatever it is. I mean, even people that go to the gym, they go to the gym because they're looking for something. Even though when you're a newbie, you may not find it right away. Most of the time, you're not going to find those people in there that are shit talking you when you're a newbie. They're gonna if you ask them for help. Most of the time, people are going to help you in there.
Oh yeah.
We look for that. So don't be afraid to ask for help when you're there as a newbie. One, but embrace that community, that people are there for the same struggle. They have the same goals as you. They want to get better as you. So if you can bring those people with you, find that tribe that you want to be a part of, and just embrace that entire culture of what it brings to you and how it uplifts you to reach your goals. It's so much easier, man. It's so much better for you. It's so much more heartwarming to those around you. Most of the time you inspire another person, and that just influences the tribe to be stronger now.
Absolutely. And I think the key thing you mentioned there was like asking for help because I know so many people have such an issue with like saying that they need help with something. And I do think it's a reflection of the education system basically making you feel like shit if you don't know something. But
No,
before
I
I go
agree.
on that tangent, I think it like a lot of people need to realize that asking for help is one of the greatest forms of flattery, especially in the gym. You know how good it must feel? Like, put yourself in that person's shoes to be like, oh, this person thought I was that fit enough or that good at this to ask me. Like, that's
They've either
one
been
giant
watching you for a lot.
compliment.
Yeah, they've either been watching you for a while. Again, they're only asking you because one, they've either seen you doing it for a long time, you've either helped someone do it previously, or they just know that you know what the fuck you're doing. When someone comes to you for that advice, it makes you feel empowered. It gives you a little confidence. So absolutely ask people for help because they're going to help you. They really, really will. You're not going to get some bully telling you no, go away.
Yeah.
They'll help you, man. I've seen it.
Yep. 99.9999% of people in gyms are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet, or they're indifferent. So it's like there's really no downside. The bullies are so few and far between. I can't even tell you the last time I had any negative gym experience whatsoever.
And for the most part, I feel you get those negative gym aspects when you go to influencer gyms because they're either purposely trying to make a point across or something where
Yep.
you're just not in the same, you're not in their culture. That's the easiest way I can put it. You're not in their culture where you don't understand what they're trying to tell you, and now you're gonna feel some type of way because they said something. They may not mean it, they might, I don't know, but it's that now. So if you find just a regular gym, you're not going to get those vibes. Look for a 24-hour gym, a LA Fitness,
Yep.
Orange Theory, what's the other one? The Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
But I would say Planet Fitness might even be the best one to start at because no one goes to them.
Yeah, absolutely. They're usually empty, and when people are there, they're usually people in the exact same journey that are just like, "Hey, I'm here to lose a few pounds and feel good. Like, I'm not trying to be like some bodybuilder. I'm not trying to go to this competitive level that's like intimidating."
Absolutely,
So, I mean, that at the end of the day, if you can find that community, it could be an absolute game changer.
I agree
And
wholeheartedly.
the last thing I had on that list, I had my big three. The last thing was leadership, because how you mentioned the
Ooh,
coaches and yourself, like getting on track and really guiding this team in the right direction. That is one of the biggest things that most people just don't have. They're kind of like just relying on whatever they see on social media, whatever they used to do back in the day, and it's just not serving them anymore. And you need somebody to one, give you the right plan, and two, to make sure you stay on the plan, like so you don't drift off.
I'll talk about Dave, our head coach, really quick. Where his identity is his identity, man. The guy's been running the same offense for the last 24 years. This year, it's, it has its wrinkles to it and this and that, but everyone knows Dave Ramos is a power and veer guy. You need to practice those because that's his bread and butter. That's what he's doing all the time, is those two things. But you get me in there, you get, a little Anthony Estrada, you get his best quarterback that ever played for Miguel. And now you've made his one set mind that's veer and power, expand to these things that are backside gaps and sweeps and all these other things that we've incorporated to our offense. Like at this point, again, going back to it, this point now in our offense, we've added so much more that they had last year at this point. They're, I want to say, like 4 weeks ahead of what they ever had installed at this point. And that's because when you have good teachers and you have good people that can get the point across, the whole entire program runs, the whole entire community runs, the whole entire community is just embedded into what the goal is. The goal is to be a league champion. Whether we're passing the ball, running the ball, whatever it is, that's the goal. So we're going to stay on that. And, and we've been able to bounce off of the power and the veer and do all the other stuff because we're all on the same page. We're all one community together, united. And that's the best thing about football, is that's what it teaches you.
Yep. Yep. Because I do think that one of those things that people butt heads on is like if kids need to do organized sports and things like that. And I'm just like, there's just so many things that you learn, so many valuable life lessons that you just can't get if you're not on a team of some sort or some sort of organization. You, it's just so valuable.
And this is where, again, where I harp on the football thing, why football is so much more valuable than other sports. And again, it's just my opinion, but
Oh, we're going
yeah,
there. We're
yeah.
going there.
I just wanted to explain it. Small little detail. There's just, when you look at opportunities of playing, football has the most, and that gives you the most chance to be on the field and stuff like that. I kind of forgot where I was going at that. My bad. But just having those opportunities is what football gives you, and it just, when you have people that can buy into those opportunities, it just makes your culture better. And if we're going to look at that on the fitness aspect, you with your FIT40, if you have your aspect of the FIT40 good, people are going to buy into that. And the more people buy into that, more people buy into it. So it's just like this domino effect of having a strong community, and leadership starts at the top, whoever's the face of it, as long as they're sticking true to what their values are and everything, people are going to follow that. And, you said earlier, picking the right leaders, just stick with one that has value to your life and follow what they say. And I'm sure you'll get some type of encouragement from them, some type of structure from them to be successful. And luckily enough, like Dave has 24 years of that in high school football, and we're pretty successful with him there. So
Yeah. And I like to, that'll be like the last thing I'm like, but, and that's another thing I want to
yeah,
touch
we
on.
could keep riffing on
This is,
forever.
well, this will be the final point, which is if you do find a program or a person that you're like, listen, I want to do their thing or their program or anything, just make sure that you want their life that they're pushing, their lifestyle. Because if you just go after the best physique, like that's a recipe for disaster, because you don't know if they're on drugs, if they're starving themselves, if they're actually even happy. So it's like, if, for example, if for you were looking at FIT40 from the outside looking in, you see all these ladies that live normal lives that still stay fit, that still eat the right things most of the times, and they can achieve their goals. Now, are we going to be jumping on stage and doing photo shoots? No, we're real people. But on the other hand, if you go to somebody who is doing it like for photo shoots, for competitions, and you're like, I want those results, but not that life, it doesn't match.
It doesn't match. Yep. Yeah.
And it,
There has to be a rhyme and a reason for it. Don't
yeah.
overstress yourself out for those things, man.
No, and I'm sure you see it too with like your clients, with the training clients. It's like, listen, what are we doing here? What's the goal? Like, we just want to lift a little heavier, feel a little bit better, lose a few pounds. Like, and to do that, you don't need to go as psycho with it.
Man, it's the consistency compounds, man. It's just be consistent over time. It's gonna compound everything that you're doing together, and you'll see the result. Just be consistent with what you're doing. Harder to say, or easier to say than to do, but you can be consistent. If it's 1 week, one workout, two workouts, one meal, two meals, whatever it is, you can find the consistency somewhere.
Exactly, exactly. So to close off, if you're looking at what to do for the end of the year, just make sure that you're getting at least one or two workouts a week. And when you eat a meal, make sure there's some protein on the plate, like just bare minimum. And then if you can do more, do more. If you can't, then just stick with that. And for most people, that's maintainable.
Literally, just sticking with that alone, you'll find some results,
Yep.
guaranteed.
And those results might just be not putting on that weight that you put on every single year.
Hmm. That is something different. That is a result of something we've done. We've changed
Yep.
something.
Exactly.
Man,
Exactly.
this was awesome, B. It's always great catching
I
up with you, dude.
I love having you on, man. But before we cap this off, where can the people find you if this is their first time hearing you?
Oh, first time I'm definitely an Instagram person. You can find me Philly underscore 2434. I'm the owner of Attitude and Effort Fitness. It's just a picture of me in a blue t-shirt. Message me. I would love to get back to you. I usually send some type of video or voice note back to you. Thank you, Andrew Coach, for that. But that's kind of how I respond to it. It's the easiest way to find me.
Love it. Love it. And I'll be sure to put all of that down in the show notes, in the caption, wherever you're listening or watching. Feel free to just click on all the links down below so you can find Phil. Now, like I said in the beginning, if at any point you heard something that really resonated and you have that friend or family member that you're like, shit, they really need to hear that, go ahead and send it their way. Tell them Brian and Phil say hi, and we'll be very, very thankful for that. Okay. So thank you guys for tuning in all the way. If you made it this far, we'll see you same time, same place next week. But until then, go kick some ass. We'll see you later.